Dear students, a very nice morning to you all. Today, once again, I am trying to link myself through the e-content or through this video to the students of BA Part 1 English Honors. Today, I have a good mind to discuss with you a very beautiful poem written by Robert Browning, and the poem is My Last Duchess. Robert Browning is a famous poet. He is one of the mightiest signatures of English poetry, and it is he who is considered to propound or propagate a different type of poetry that is known dramatic monologue. So this poem, My Last Duchess, is a dramatic monologue. Browning was born in 1812, and he left for his heavenly abode in 1889. So, but natural, you might have understood, you might have comprehended that Browning is a mighty poet of 19th century. Here in the poem, the poet is presenting, or the poet is projecting a duke, and that duke is very egoistic. He has his credit, he has so many words in his credits, you can say, and he boasts of those works of his. He has a very good wife. He is blessed to have such a wife, beautiful one, a smiling one, good-natured one, good character one, innocent one. But that wife of his, that lady of his, is so innocent that she mixes with one and all without any reservations. She has no class consciousness, no doubt. She is the wife of the Duke. She is the Duchess. She must not mingle with the public. She must not establish rapport with one and all. But she is made of different soil, you can say. The Duke does not like this nature of his. It pinches him, you can say. He thinks that by doing so, his wife is soiling his reputation, the reputation of his dynasty, you can say. So he is against this behavior, this attitude of his wife. He suggests her not to do so. He advises her, rather he warns her time and again. But the lady fails to improve herself according to the wishes of her husband. She fails to do away with her innocence. She is pure-hearted, no doubt. She has no ego, as I have told you. She has no class consciousness. And at the same time, she is a lady of strong character. She is not a lady of light steps, you can say. She is not a lady of loose character. But she fails to, as I have told you, she fails to abide by the order. Rather, it is the order of his husband not to mix with others. He orders him to control herself. He orders her to mend her habits. Otherwise, she will be taught a lesson. The lady fails to do so, and she is taught a lesson. She is killed. She is put to sword. She is transported into that world where there is no life. She is put to death. She has been murdered. She has been killed by the order of the Duke, who is her own husband. And here we find in the poem that Duke is boasting this great work of his. He considers this cruelty of his as his great work, or rather greatest work. We find here there is a messenger. He is talking to the messenger of a king, you can say, and that messenger has brought the proposal for his marriage, for his marriage, and there the Duke is telling this story of his and his wife to that person, so that that person might know all these things about his character and tell everything to the lady. At the same time, it is said, it is believed that the Duke is trying to project himself before that messenger, just to make him know it is I. Now, I request you students, if you have the book, The Mystic Drum, with you, please turn the book, turn to page number 54, and here we will find Mr. Robert Browning sitting with his poem My Last Duchess. Before coming to the poem, I should read something. Now see, My Last Duchess, selected from dramatic lyrics, is one of Browning's well-known dramatic monologue. According to Robert Langham, in the poetry of experience, the dramatic monologue in modern literary tradition, the peculiar genius of the form is created by the tension between symphony and judgment. In a dramatic monologue, the speaker's apprehension of reality is different from the objective reality. Since the reader can comprehend both the realities, he can at once emphasize with and objectively judge the speaker. Thus, irony becomes an underlying factor resulting from the tension between sympathy and judgment. Now see the point. In My Last Duchess, an Italian duke who was a stern and severe egoist. Point to be noted. The duke is the Italian one, and the feature of his character must be pointed out here, must be noted here. He is a very stern person. He is a bit cynic, you can say. He is a severe egoist. He has the ego. He is a man of class consciousness. He thinks himself a very privileged person. He believes in the gap between person to person. He believes that he is a man of a higher class. He is a man of higher status, and he must maintain distance from the people of lower status. Shows his My Last Duchess An Italian duke who was a stern and severe egoist shows his picture gallery to the envoy of a count, as I have told you. A messenger, an envoy, comes there to negotiate a marriage proposal with him. And in this marriage proposal, that envoy has come for the duke. That duke is going to be remarried, you can say. And that duke lets him sit in a hall, and there is some picture gallery is there. There are some pictures upon the wall, and that duke is showing him the picture gallery. And among those pictures, there is a picture of his wife, and he points his finger towards that particular picture hung on the wall to that envoy. Now come to the point. Ferrara, that is my last duchess painted on the wall. That is my last duchess. As you know, Raja, Maharajas, kings, dukes, and there they have so many wives. There have been the tradition of having many wives, you can say. Therefore, he points out towards that picture and tells him, see that picture. That is the picture of my last duchess. After that, I have not married. I am Kumara, you can say. After the death of this lady, I am a bachelor, you can say. I am unmarried, you can say. And after this, you have come with a proposal for my marriage. So that is my last duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. See the still of the painter. See the beauty of the painting. That is the picture. That is the painting. That it has been drawn, it has been painted in such a way that it seems that painting is almost alive. It seems smiling. It seems that it is going to speak something. It has so well been crafted, so well been designed, so well been painted or drawn by the artist, you can say. So that is my last duchess painted on the wall, looking as if she were alive. I call that piece a wonder. It's a wonderful piece. Like the painting of Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. A very mysterious smile is there on the face of Mona Lisa. And still that mysterious smile has not been revealed for what purpose she is smiling. So such is the beauty of the painting here. Far Pandolf's hand. This painting, this picture has been drawn, has been painted by Far Pandolf's hands worked busily a day, and there she stands. This picture has been painted, has been designed, has been drawn by Mr. Fra Pandolf. He was a great artist, he was a great painter, he was a skilled artist or painter. It took him a whole day to draw this picture, and this is the result. This picture is the result of that strenuous effort of that artist, that is Mr. Fra Bandorf. What busily a day, and there she stands. Will it please you, sir, and look at her. If you like, if the beauty of this painting pleases you, go on looking at her. There is no problem, there is no objection. I am not going to stop you from looking at or enjoying the beauty of this lady. Now, who is not alive now? Who is not alive one? Who is there, who has been transformed into a painting? Strange like you, that pictured countenance, the depth and passion of its earnest glance, but to myself they turn, since none puts by the curtain I have drawn for you, but I. How such a glance came there? Now he is rather defining, you can say, point-wise, the beauty of her wife, beauty of her own lady, you can say. Here he is talking about her glance, about her look, about her beautiful glance or beautiful look. And he says, how she got that glance? Sir, it was not her husband's presence only called that a spot of joy into the Duchess's cheek. Perhaps Fra Bandorf chanced to say her mental lapse. I have told you that Duke is very much possessive one. There are so many husbands like the Duke in our society also. They like to talk with other ladies. They enjoy talking or mixing with the other ladies, but they do not wish to have their own wives talking with other male members or others. When they see their wives talking smilingly, mixing together with other males, they take it awkward. They fail to bear it. However, they themselves do the same, but they fail to digest. This is the condition with this Duke. He thinks that his wife is his property. His wife should talk to him only. His wife should smile for him only. She should look at him only. She should show the dimple that comes upon her cheeks when she smiles to him only. But this is not the case. As I have told you, the lady is of different nature. She is very innocent. She has no ego. She has no class consciousness. She believes she believes in mixing with others. She smiles with all. She enjoys the company of all. She talks with her maids also, with the servants also. She smiles with them. So when she smiles, they too enjoy, or they too see the spot, the dimple that comes upon the cheeks of the lady, and it pains the Duke, the husband. He doesn't like it. She had a heart, how shall I say, too soon made glad, too easily impressed. She liked whatever she looked on, and she looks and her looks went everywhere. These are the very important lines for the explanation. You can say she had a heart. Now the Duke is describing the heart of the lady. Time and again I have told you, she is a very pious lady, a very pure-hearted lady, having child-like personality, having no ego. She mixes with all. She talks with all. She loves all. As I have told you, she has a very childlike personality. At the same time, she must have been a very young lady, you can say. She must have been a very young lady. When you age, so with the passing of time, or when you grow old, तो your desire die down. जब आप बड़े हो जाते हैं, एज वाले हो जाते हैं, तो आपकी इच्छाएं क्या हो जाती हैं? डाई डाउन हो जाती हैं, धीरे धीरे आपकी इच्छाएं कम होती जाती हैं. But when you are young one, you have so many desires. So she has a childlike personality. Whatsoever she sees, she desires to have that. Suppose she is sitting in her palace, in the corridor of his palace, you can say, and there she finds a peddler selling लट्ठो मिठाई. लाठी में होता है, लड़का लट्ठा वाला होता है, वो आप देखिएगा, वो लपेटा हुआ था, उसको खींच के वो निकाल के खींचता है और फिर लट्ठो बना के उसको देता है. We used to eat. हम लोग इसमें बहुत मशहूर मिठाई वो हुआ करती थी. When we were the reading in class 5, 6, 4 or etc. So there our parents used to provide us athana, charana, this one. So we used to have that, and we used to wait very curiously rather for the recess, for the tiffin, you can say, tiffin period or recess period in our time. Because at recess period or our tiffin period, they used to come, they used to sell different items and we used to eat it. So, अब that latho, that Bombaya mithai, which is also called Bombaya mithai, so that type of mithai, that type of sweet is eaten or consumed by general persons. Now she too wants to have that. I mean, Duchess. Why should a Duchess like that sweet? And if she likes, all are watching her. What will they see? What will they say? What will they tell about that lady? They see that this lady. We also like the sweets. We also eat, and she is the Duchess, the wife of the Duke, and she too likes this. And there will be no difference. So this type of nature she has. She loves everything. She wants whatsoever she looks at, she wants to have that. And it irks, IRKS. It irks the husband. It irks the Duke. Why should she like almost all the things with the general people, with the general public, with the people of lower strata like? She must maintain gravity. She must be class conscious. This is the feeling of the husband. This is the feeling of the Duke. Now see, I am leaving a few lines. I know not. So she looked on, and her looks went everywhere. Her looks went everywhere. But this doesn't mean, as I have told you, she is very innocent. She has a childlike personality. So she looks at this, she looks at that. She looks at him, she looks at her. Nothing goes beyond her eyes, you can say. And it bites, you can say. It bites the husband. It bites the Duke. And he thinks, what does he think here? See, my gift of 900 years old name with anybody's gift? That Duke has the tradition of dukedom of 900 years. 900 years, 900 साल से उसका ड्यूकडम चला आ रहा है. अब a person comes, brings some trifle gift, you can say, with some trifle gift, छोटी मोटी चीज, and she takes it. She thanks him because I have told you she believes in mixing with all. She has no class consciousness. She has no ego, and she accepts one and all heartily. She hugs one and all heartily. She embraces one and all. The Duke doesn't like this, and he thinks that by doing so, the lady is soiling the reputation of his 900 years old dynasty or dukedom. In a speech to make your will quite dear to such a note, and I say just this: oh, that in you disgust me, here you miss, or there exceed the mark, and if she let herself be lessened, so not plainly said. Now leave a few lines and now see the lines. These are the lines which are often asked for the explanation. Even then would be some stooping, and I choose never to stoop. Oof, sir, she smiled. Now the description of the smile of that lady, a smile of his own wife. Oh, sir, she smiled, no doubt, whenever I passed her. It is not that the lady neglected her husband. She never neglects her husband. Whenever she gets a chance to have the glimpse of her husband, she smiles at him. The Duke accepts this himself. But he says, but who was there? Who was there for whom she did not smile? सर, हम मुझको तो छोड़िए, हो जाओ, मुझको देख के वो मुस्कुराती थी, लेकिन किसको देख नहीं मुस्कुराती थी? समझ रहे हैं? You must the episode, dear students. The Duke is very happy that the Duchess used to smile at her, but he was pained at the same time that she smiled for all. He has this grievance from his own wife, from the lady, from the Duchess. You should smile for me only, because I am your husband. You are my property. I am possessive of you. You are my possession. Why others should see your Dantkanti pasted teeth? Why others should enjoy your dimple? Why others should see your smile? Why others' hearts should get cooled by your air-conditioned smile? So you should smile for me. And that lady was stubborn. She was a third one, you can say. बार-बार उसको समझाया जाता था. Time and again, he tried to convince her. He warned or ordered her to change her nature or behavior. No. And you know that nature and signature are not changed. She is not wrong. Why should she change her nature? She is not wrong. But the king is a cynic one. He is an egoist one. He is a barbarous. He is a barbarous man. You can say he has barbarity in him. He has savagery in him. And then what happened? Oh sir, when you were, but who passed without much the same smile? बताइए, हमको देख के मुस्कुराती थी, no doubt. I am blessed one, but all were blessed. अपना स्माइल वैसे ही बांट देती थी. She used to distribute. She smiled for all. Oh, sir, yeah. This grew. The Duke wanted it to die down, to lessen, but it increased. ये बढ़ता गया, ये बढ़ता गया, and what did the poet do here? The Duke does that. This grew. I gave commands, then all smiles stopped together. Now the water flows from the head of the Duke. He is not ready. He is not ready to accept all these things. Time and again he suggests her. Time and again he warns her to improve, to change, to reform her, to change her habit. She fails to do so. And what happened after that? I gave commands, and then all smiles stopped together. And see how nirlajja is he. Shameless person. He is boasting of his own act of cruelty, telling she did not abide by me. I had no option. I commanded, and that is the result of my command, that she is there hanging on the wall. I commanded, her smile stopped. She has been butchered. She has been killed. She has been put to death. She has been framed. See here, if she had abide by me, she would have been living. She did not. Therefore, she is there, dead, or she is there in the picture. See the last lines of the poem. The Count, your master's known munificence, is ample warrant that no just pretense of mine for dowry will be disallowed. He is a greedy person also. The Duke is a greedy person also. Here, he is telling the envoy, the messenger, that the Count must provide him or provide her daughter some dowry also. Nay, his fair daughter self, as I avowed at steering, is my object. Nay, we will go together. No, down, sir. We will go together. Now come, we will go together. Notice Neptune, the alliteration of N sound. Notice Neptune, thou taming a seahorse, thought a rarity, which class of Innsbruck cast in bronze for me, and while coming down, he points his finger towards a picture, you can say, towards a statue. And what was the feature, or what was remarkable of that picture is this. Notice Neptune the taming seahorse. In that picture, a horse is shown, or a horse is painted being tamed by someone. Someone might be riding upon the horse. The horse is shown there in the hold of someone. And through this statue is the symbol. And through the symbol of the statue, the Duke wants to convey the message to the Count through the inward, that I want a wife, but that wife of mine should be under my possession. She must not go beyond me or beyond my order. She will be living with me just like a tamed animal, like the pet animal. She will be my possession. She will have to go by me. She will have to go by my desire. She should not have her own desire. My desire should be her desire. And if she succeeds in adopting such things, she will be living, she will be enjoying the fresh air. Otherwise, there are so many places that is upon the wall, and like this picture, there will be another picture. So the poem very clearly hammers upon the cynicism, upon the egoism of the Duke, who is not a man. However, he looks like a man, but certainly he is not a man. There is evil, or there is devil in him. The poet very skillfully or very clearly points out the evil nature of the Duke. Dear students, I have tried my level best to help you understand this poem. You should also go through the text on your own. Try to comprehend it. Try to understand it on your own. While passing through, while going through the poem, if you fail to understand it, if you fail to comprehend it, if you come across some problems, you must pass your comments. You must send your comments through your problems to your comments. Your comments will always be welcomed. I will try to sort out those problems of yours. We will meet in other class with some other work. Till then, have a very, very nice day. Thank you. God bless.